In this deep dive video, we'll be talking about estimating in Procore and some of the key features that you'll want to know about as you begin to use the tool. First, we'll be discussing basic navigation, the Procore integration, and adding plans. Next, we'll get into the takeoff piece, material catalog, and finish with estimating. Once you log into esticom.com, you'll see all of your different projects on your homepage right here. Across the top, you can view these different projects by project stage, and you can also sort and filter these projects by some of these unique identifiers. You have the ability to search projects, and you can view these as a grid if you'd like. You also have the ability to view a calendar, material catalog, and additional training resources on Esticom's website. From the projects view, you'll notice that on the left-hand side, there is a Procore projects button. This is enabled through the Procore integration that you can find by clicking your name on the top right and selecting integrations. Once enabled, you would then navigate over to Procore to activate the integration from Procore side. In order to find the Esticom Takeoff and Estimating integration, you would go to our app marketplace, search Esticom, and install. Once installed, in your company level admin tool, under app management, you'll see Esticom Takeoff and Estimating. Here you can view your app info, usage, but mostly we're concerned with configurations here. If you want to link an Esticom project to a Procore project, you'll select Create Configuration. Here we can link specific projects that we're working with in the estimating stage. That way we can use the embedded experience within Procore. An important thing to consider when using the Esticom and Procore integration is that the key difference between using the embedded app or esticom.com is the use of templates. In order to create a template project, or in other words, if I select a project here with takeoffs already created, we have the ability to template or basically create an empty space to count a lot of the items or all the items that we expect to use on a particular type of project. When creating the projects in Procore, we do not have the ability to select which template we want to apply. However, if you do a lot of the same type of project, you can set a default template. And in this case, any projects created in Procore, when pushed to Esticom, will have that same template. So again, the only functional difference that may affect your estimates in Esticom or Procore is the ability to use templates. If you don't need to use a template, then using the embedded experience should not pose any issues. Similarly, when you use the integration between estimating and Procore, you'll notice that when I access that integration from my company level, I'm brought to the company level in Esticom, where I can see all my different projects. If I access that integration from the project level, where you see I'm within a project in Procore, using the app on the right-hand side will navigate me to that project in Esticom. So selecting back and forth, you'll see that these two are a similar experience, just with Esticom embedded in Procore in this one. But in order to activate that integration, again, we're activating from the Esticom side and from the app management side within our company level admin tool in Procore. For now, we'll work out of app.esticom.com, and we'll take a look at some of the different key modules that you're going to use when you conduct an estimate in Esticom. The natural progression of estimating in Procore will move left to right from details onto plans, next to takeoff, and finally to estimating. Once we've set up our project information, we can then move on to add plans. If we're already integrated with Procore, you'll see our plans coming over from that Procore project if we've uploaded them through the drawings tool. We're able to add plans here manually through all these different sources, or it can just be a file on your computer. You also have the ability to add in folders that mimic, in this case, our disciplines that come over from Procore. The takeoff module is where you'll do all your counting and measuring. You can navigate between different plans by using these arrows here, or you can search for a different plan in the dropdown. You have the ability to compare with different plans, open the plan in a new tab, share the plan by email, download a PDF, or export into Procore. Before you do anything, you'll want to be able to set your plan scale. You can choose from common scales that are provided here, both architectural and civil, or you can manually set the scale by manually measuring or by choosing a value to enter here. Once you've provided a scale for your plan, you have the ability to apply that scale to multiple plans. In this example, we'll manually measure a distance that we'll use to set our scale. I'll use one click to start and one click to finish, using a known distance on the plans to set my scale. I'll apply to this plan, but like I mentioned, you can apply the scale to multiple plans. Before I perform any takeoffs, note that you do have some markup tools on the right-hand side, namely a note and a task icon as well. These should be familiar as they are mentioned in the details page here where we have notes and tasks. Any notes or tasks that are added to the plans will be visible from that main details page. If I add a task here, you'll see that I can put in a description and assign to a particular user. I'm going to put test here. That way we can show where this displays, and we'll do the same for a note. These notes and tasks will appear on that details page where you can see the note that I've put in, along with the task that I can mark as complete. Now that we've set our scale, we can begin adding takeoffs. Once you select the Add Takeoff button, you can browse a material from the material catalog by searching for the material name here, or you can browse the material catalog by just selecting the catalog button. This will bring you to your entire material catalog where you can then select a certain material to count. You'll notice that if I select a type of item that has a default measurement type, in this case MC cable, when I select it, the default measurement type changes to linear. In this first example, we're going to do a count type measurement. So we'll go ahead and select Add Takeoff, and I'm going to choose occupancy sensor. This I don't have in my material catalog. It's a good example of something that I might add either through an import or individually from my material catalog back at the company level. I'll choose my measurement type as count, choose the symbol. In this case, I'll just use a circle of a blue color. I'll select Add to Plan, where you can see I can go into takeoff mode by selecting any one of these items. And you can see I've got these occupancy sensors here that I can count. Or if I wanted to, I could remove that takeoff and run what's known as the auto count. In this case, I can run an auto count because I'm looking for a specific symbol to count more than once. This can be incredibly helpful on projects where you have several items to count of a certain type. I've selected auto count, where I can now draw a rectangle around the symbol to be auto counted. I'll select once to start the rectangle and once to finish. Once I'm finished trimming the area, I can select the checkbox here to confirm. You have the ability to run it on multiple plans, where you can manually select the different plans you'd like to run it on. But in this case, I'll just go ahead and run it on this active plan. When I select Run Auto Count, Procore's estimating tool will search for all those different results and will give you an opportunity to check our work. In this case, it looks like there were no other possible matches, as this is a pretty specific symbol that we've looked for. We'll go ahead and confirm nothing that's captured here is incorrect, and we'll save and close. Now we've successfully completed an auto takeoff, or an auto count, I should say, on all the occupancy sensors on this floor. The next type of takeoff we'll do is square footage. I'll select Add Takeoff and search for carpeting here. I'll make sure my measurement type is set to area volume and set the color as well. Now I'll select Add to Plan. We're in polygon mode, so we'll hold Control for rectangle mode, where we'll start one click to start, one click to turn, and 2 clicks to finish. You'll see that the square footage comes in here. But if I were doing a type of measurement that required me to do a volume type calculation, I could just select the ellipses right here. And under additional takeoff parameters, you'll see that there's volume, slope, paint, piece size, and perimeter. I can turn each one of these on. If I select volume, I can indicate a height for this measurement. You also will have a list of plans as well that show where that item has been taken off on. Let's say I were doing an area measurement in a room where I needed to do a negative area calculation. For example, in this men's restroom, let's say that these sinks here and the countertops are one piece that goes all the way down to the floor. Therefore, we don't need to tile underneath it. In this example, I might go ahead and select Add Takeoff. I'll choose floor tile. In this case, I'll choose ceramic tile. We'll choose the area volume type measurement. Select a color for that. We've already used blue, so we'll use another one here. And select Add to Plan. I'll calculate my tile area as I normally would with 1 click to turn and 2 clicks to finish. But I want to erase this area right here where the sinks are. So I'll go ahead and take another area right on top of it. And we can see here that this shows about 15 square foot, where I can then use the select tool, select that area, and then choose negative area. In this situation, it's probably best to go around that. In this situation, it's probably best to just go around the sinks. But this is how we would demonstrate a negative area in a situation where maybe you have a piece of equipment that's in the center of a room or a certain finish that's in the middle of the room that you need to remove an area for. The next measurement type we'll look at is the vertical wall area. So we'll select Add Takeoff. I'll go to my catalog. And let's look for something that we can use a vertical wall area for. I'll search up something like fabric panels. And let's say we have some fabric wrapped wall panels on our executive office wall. So I'm going to go ahead and choose my vertical wall area here, select my color, and apply to plan. So let's say this large conference area is the room that needs the fabric panels. We'll go ahead and use 1 click to start, 2 clicks to finish. And we'll do the same over here. 1 click to start, 2 clicks to finish. Now we'll select the 3 dots here, the ellipses here, to show the height of the wall. In this case, say it's about 10 feet. where you'll see the square footage of that material will be updated. For any other similar type calculations where we need to do stud spacing, piece sizes, or paint, we can turn those on. To this point, we've covered the count, linear, and area type takeoffs, which are some of the most common you might encounter. There are several other types of measurement types, though, where we have linear with drop, which is typically used for measuring conduit and drop distances at defined points. Linear average with drop, which helps simplify that process if you potentially have hundreds of runs to, let's say, furniture drops, things of that nature, where we want to take a few different points and average them out. Count by distance. So, for example, if a certain material occurs every such and such distance, like things come in 10-foot sticks, you may show a count by distance. In this example here, we say J hooks, anchors, and straps. So if I need a strap every 10 feet, for example, I can put that in. And we've covered area and vertical wall area as well. To demonstrate a couple more takeoff types, we'll use this structured cabling plan. First, we'll start with a linear with drop. I'll search up Cat6 cabling. Where we'll choose the measurement type linear with drop. Again, we can use linear average with drop in a situation where we add to plan. Rather than measuring all these different runs to all these different furniture outlets, we can run an average, but that is a more advanced method that can help save a lot of time. We're not going to actually run the takeoff from the panel, but rather just show that each time you click, it'll add an additional item for a drop. When you do enter it, you'll notice that you can enter in the default drop length. You can automatically label those drops. And you can also edit the individual drop lengths on an item. Where you see I can set the drop length. The final type of takeoff we'll perform is a count by distance. Here, we'll go in and choose some one-hole straps from commercial, electrical here. So I'll just type in the word straps. And we'll just choose the 4-inch one-hole straps. We're going to choose the measurement type of count by distance. And in a very similar fashion, we'll be able to count each item by distance. Here you can see I'm clearly missing my scale information, but the takeoff in itself is performed in a similar fashion. Once the takeoff is performed, you can see that I can change my spacing or add a multiplier if there are multiple runs of that item occurring together. So for example, if I had a group of cables running together, or if I had straps that were running side by side because it was going to be carrying a bunch of cables, then I might add a multiplier here. Now that we've reviewed some of the most common types of takeoffs in estimating, let's take a look at the material catalog. This is where pricing is stored and is a key component in transforming this takeoff into a full estimate.
So out of the box, meaning what's included with the software, all right, whether you're a general contractor or a specialty contractor, you're going to have access to every one of these catalogs, all right? And what you're going to do is you're simply going to toggle on the database that you want, and you're going to toggle off the databases you are not concerned with, all right? Now, our databases, these catalogs are kind of structured into two categories, all right? One on the specialty contractor side, or for any GCs that may be doing any self-performing work, and then a general construction catalog, all right? Now, we'll start with the specialty contractor, all right? So as an example, I'm going to use this electrical database, all right? Now, within this database, we have individual items and we have assemblies pre-built, and there are thousands of these items, all right? These items will come with a material cost and a unit labor associated with them, All right, so as an example, an individual item is going to be like this stick of conduit, right? It's just the stick of conduit, price broken out per foot, and then the unit labor broken out per foot, right? These are national average figures, right? We're getting these calculations from Craftsman, but you are not married to any of this information. And I'll go through here in a little bit and show you how you can edit any of this, but just know that you are not married to any of this information. You have the ability to modify this in any way, shape, or form, right? Now, on the general construction side, if I expand this out, we are broken out in all 48 divisions. And within those divisions, they're broken out by items with cost codes, right? Now, within here, on these items within the general construction database, there are no material costs and there is no unit labor associated with these items, all right? Because we are under the impression you are getting these turnkey bids in from your subcontractors, right? But that is not to say, like I mentioned previously, you are not married to this information. You cannot go in here and modify it and add a material cost or a unit labor associated with those items, right? Now, the fact that we have thousands of items within our database, and these databases are basically, MEP trades, right? Getting your own material in, creating these catalogs on your own, bringing material in a database, or if you're a specialty contractor, a division that we do not have a pre-built catalog for, getting those items in is very, very simple. And we give you two ways of getting those items in. One is in bulk, the other is individually, and I will start with bulk right now, all right? So if I wanted to do a bulk import of material, right, I'm gonna come over here, I will hit more, all right? Import catalog items. Now there's multiple ways of getting your items in, right? If you're an existing Procore user and you have all of your items set up within Procore, your CSI codes, I can come over here and with a click of a mouse, import those items directly from Procore. I can import items from Trade Service. I also have the ability to import items directly from QuickBooks. Now, this is the online version. We do not currently support the desktop version, all right? Alternatively, you have the ability to import items from an Excel sheet, which is what 90% of our contractors are doing. And by downloading this is basically an Excel file, right? It has to stay in this format. It cannot be manipulated in any way, shape, or form, meaning I cannot go in here and rename any headers, right? I cannot delete any columns, even if they're not being used, right? There is no limit to the number of items I can copy and paste in here, right? Now, when I'm adding my items and I'm pasting these items into the appropriate columns, all right, there's only two required columns here. Column A, which is the name, so we know how to search for the item. And then column C, which is a unit of measure, so we know how to count or measure this item, all right? Everything else is optional. The import will go in if you do not have any of these other additional columns filled out, but the import will fail if you do not minimally have column A or column C filled out. Now, down here at the bottom, you can separate your items by cost type down here, all right? Once I get my items, copy and paste it into the appropriate columns, I will then hit save. Import catalog items, import from an Excel file. And clicking on here, basically I will just browse to locally to wherever I've saved those files, right? Double click, hit upload, and those items will then show up under imported parts. If I expand this out, if I brought them over from Procore, it will say Procore. If I brought them over via the spreadsheet, it will have the date that I imported them, and I can simply hit these three dots, rename this database, toggle it on, and now I'm accessing that database full of items. Now, I also have the ability to import items individually. All right, so if I'm on the fly doing my takeoff and I want to add an individual item, I'm searching the database, nothing pulls up, it's not in my database, I can quickly add an item individually in seconds. All right, either from the takeoff screen, from my estimating sheet, or directly from my material catalogs right here. And what I'll do is I will just go to add item. All right. This first field right here is my cost type. I hit this drop down. Here are my different cost types available. This second field right here is the catalog that I want to save this item in. So when I create this item, it's going to ask me, what catalog do I want to save it in? I can save it in an existing catalog, or I can create a brand new one and save that item in there. All right. I put the name, the description, the unit of measure, any item costs or labor associated with it, manufacturer, supplier, any information relative to that item I can add here. The same restrictions apply on the bulk import as it is individually. The item name and the unit of measure are the only required pieces of information. Once I get the information added, I will hit save, and it will be saved in the catalog in your database forever until you physically go in there and delete it. All right. Now, I mentioned previously that you are not married to this information. You have the ability to edit any of the out-of-the-box items, assemblies, parts, anything like that. And there's a few ways of doing that, and I'll show you all those ways right now. And I'm going to start with editing an individual item at a time. So we'll use this 1-inch conduit for an example. So let's say I want to change the item cost or the unit labor associated with this item. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to these 3 dots over here on the right-hand side. Now, editing will replace the existing item. Copying will create a duplicated version. If I just want to change one small instance and keep the original version in there and create a modified version, I will hit copy, right? But typically, if you're editing an individual item, you want to replace it. So you will just simply at that point hit edit. And it opens up that individual item, and I can change whatever information that I have here. Again, my item cost, name, labor. I can add any of my own CSI codes in here. Whatever I want, I can manipulate this. Now, if I have 150 assemblies within my database, utilizing this 1-inch stick of conduit, if I make changes to this conduit, it will automatically update any and all assemblies utilizing this individual item automatically. So those changes are going to be done at the part level, and it will update the assemblies accordingly. All right. Now, modifying an assembly. All right. So I'm going to use this duplex receptacle as an example here. All right. So I want to modify this. All right. So the same process, I'm going to go to these 3 dots, the far right-hand side. Now on an assembly, I recommend copying it versus editing it, because again, editing replaces the existing assembly, and you may want this formatted the exact way it is on a future project. All right. So in editing an assembly, I recommend hitting copy, which creates a duplicated version of this. Now I open this up. These are all the subcomponents that make up the assembly based on the parameters that I have set forth here. Now, when I edit an assembly, I can remove items. I can search my catalog and add additional items. I can change my quantities, remove it, again, add it, change quantities. And at that point, if I've created a duplicated version of this, the only thing at that point, once I've changed my quantities, inserted additional items or removed items, I want to make sure I change my item description to reflect whatever changes I've made to this assembly. Once I've made those changes, I will hit save. Now that duplicated assembly is now forever changed, and a copy of that is included in the database, accessible to everyone in your organization forever until you physically go in there and delete it. The last way is editing items in bulk. Okay, so if I want to use an existing database, whether it's an out-of-the-box database or it's a database that I have created, and I want to update the item costs or labor in bulk reflected within my organization. So I will, at that point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the right-hand side of the desired catalog. I'm going to hit the 3 dots, and I'm going to hit export parts. Once I export these parts, all of those items will show up in an Excel sheet, right? And these are all the individual items. That will not export the assemblies, right? Because remember, when you make changes, you will make these changes at the part level, and it will update the assemblies automatically. So I can come over here and change whatever information that I want to this item. And the same thing applies. If I made changes to this strap here, let's say I changed the item cost and the labor. If I have 150 assemblies in my database utilizing this 2-inch steel strap, it's automatically going to update all of those assemblies automatically with whatever changes I made to this individual item. All right. So I make whatever changes, hit save, and then just hit import parts. Catalog items, I'll import that Excel file, browse wherever I've saved it, import it back in, and now that entire database has been updated and changed accordingly versus doing it individually. The last thing I want to mention is you have complete control of how you want this database structured. Okay, I can create new catalogs. I can add subfolders to organize these however I want. You can see my main catalog is electrical. I can add additional categories underneath here to separate my material. You can see here by conduit and fittings, receptacles and switches. So I can create subfolders as well. As an example, if I open up my structured cabling database, I have this broken out by manufacturer. So again, you have complete control over how this how these catalogs are structured. And again, you will just toggle on the databases that you currently want to use and keep the other databases toggled off. Okay, now that we have discussed the takeoff portion of the estimate, I want to talk about how all of this information flows from the takeoff screen directly into the estimating sheet without any double entry of values. All right. Okay, so now that we have talked about the takeoff portion of the estimate, I want to talk about how all of my quantities and groups and items flows directly from my takeoff screen onto my estimate without any double entry of information. All right, so all the groups that I have created, all of my items directly underneath this, all of my quantities, all of this information flows directly from my takeoff screen over to my estimating sheet. You can see here on the left-hand side are my items. All right, these arrows next to my items indicate an assembly. So if I expand this out, this duplex receptacle, you can see the assembly, the quantity, all of my submaterial that makes up that assembly based on those parameters and the quantities. So the items are on my left-hand side. I have the quantity of my items, my individual item cost, a waste factor, my total cost with quantity, my margin or markup, I can easily toggle between the two, my individual sales price, my total sales price with quantity, my profit, which is obviously the difference between my cost and sales price, my labor in hours or minutes, my individual labor rate, this difficulty factor, which is going to increase or decrease my unit labor based on certain working conditions. So for an example, right, this fluorescent fixture, this A1D light, this could be 20 feet in the air, and I'm working off a scissor lift to install this item. Well, it's going to take me a lot longer to install that item on a 20-foot ceiling on that scissor lift than if I was just walking around with an 8-foot ladder installing these on an 8 or a 10-foot ceiling. The unit labor that I have out of the box that I've created is pretty much standard working conditions in new construction. Well, the fact that it's going to take me a lot longer, I may want to take this difficulty factor and say I want to increase my labor by 20% to accommodate the additional hours that are an additional labor that's going to be involved in installing that item. So increasing this will increase my total labor hours for that item, as well as increasing the total labor hours for that group. I also have the ability to go in the opposite direction. If I feel like I can get it out of there quicker than usual, I can reduce my unit labor by a certain percentage, thus reducing my labor hours for the individual item, as well as my labor hours for the entire group itself. Anything in orange I can click on and manipulate, right? I can increase my quantity. I can manipulate my item cost on the fly. Again, anything in orange I can click on and manipulate. Now, moving along. If I want to add something to this item, an item to this estimate that I'm not necessarily going to do a takeoff, equipment rental, additional supervision, PM time, or You are not limited to only utilizing a set of drawings to access Esticom. You don't have to do a physical takeoff to send out a proposal using Esticom. All right. You can skip the physical takeoff, uploading your plans, skip the physical takeoff, jump directly to the estimating tab and add those items at any point to your estimate. How you're going to do that is you are going to create a new group. I can title this group whatever I want. Then I will simply come over here to the far right-hand side and hit Add Item. And now I have complete access to all of my current databases. I can grab any and all items that I want, select, and manually put those quantities within my estimate. So again, you are not limited to only utilizing Esticom if you have a set of drawings and you need to do a physical takeoff. Any items can be added at any point in time to this estimate, and you can manually put those quantities in. Moving further down, this additional notes section, this is where you're going to put your scope of work, any inclusions, exclusions, and any project notes. Now I can type a big paragraph here. I am not limited to utilizing a single line item. Also, in order to increase efficiencies within my estimates, is I have the ability to create a library of these inclusions and exclusions, so I don't have to come over here and type this stuff out every single time I want to create an estimate. All I will do is I will hit Browse Library, New Inclusion or Exclusion. I will put the name, contents, hit Confirm, and then moving forward, all I need to do is come over here and grab these check boxes right here and add that to my estimate. And again, you notice I do not have to go in there and retype this information. You also notice I have this default here next to my inclusions and exclusions. All right. If I have standard inclusions and exclusions on all my projects, all right. So for an example, if I'm an electrical contractor and I don't do any low voltage, I want to exclude low voltage from all of my estimates. Well, instead of having to select this every single time, is I can go to these three dots over here on the right-hand side, toggle this on, and I will include those by default on any new projects I open up. And I can just add the individual one-offs that are specific to that project. And again, saving time from having to duplicate my efforts every single project that I open up. Now, moving along. Underneath my additional notes section, I have my summary section. Now, these are also my global settings. So as an example, whatever burden labor rate I put here, whatever labor margin, material margin, or my other cost type margins that I put here, all of these values flow all the way through my project. So as an example, I have $55 as my global labor rate. That $55 flows across all of my items, no matter what it is. But like I mentioned previously, anything in orange, I can click on and go back and modify on an individual item basis. Same thing with my material margin, labor margin, and so on. I have 10% all the way through here, but I can go back through here and manipulate this on a per item basis. The simple fact is you may have a big ticket item within your estimates that you can't use the same percentage points and still stay competitive. So you have the ability to manipulate that on a per item basis. So again, underneath the summary, I have all of my labor hours from all of my groups here, times my burden labor rate gives me my labor costs, my material costs, my total job cost, right? My burden labor rate plus my margin or markup gives me my global sales rate. My total job cost plus my margin or markup will give you my sales price. My profit, which is obviously the difference between my sales price and cost. Bottom left-hand corner, I have the ability to add any percentages here for my overhead or all my indirect costs. If you visually want to show a discount on your proposal, you can add a percentage for this. Taxes, depending on where your client is, it will suggest a tax rate. But like I mentioned, anything in orange, I can click on and manipulate. We have a spot here, you can add a percentage for bonding, as well as any other random adjustments. You can come over here, type in what those are, and put a positive or negative percent or dollar amount. Now, before I get into show bid, I want to go over a couple of things here. Is I have the ability to export my bill of materials. Well, one, create a bill of materials, export that bill of materials, send this off to my supply house, update those prices, and import that bill of materials directly back into my estimate with a click of a mouse. And I will show you how to do that now. All right. At the top right-hand corner, the three dots next to add new, if I hit these three dots, I'll come down here and hit export bill of materials. Now I have these two options here. I can export it, which is in a flat list, which is across the entire project, or I can group my bill of materials by plan. So if you have your drawings, one sheet is floor 1, the other sheet is floor 2, I can separate that bill of materials based on those floors, buildings, however I want. Right? For today's purposes, I'm going to just export in a flat list. So when I export that out, it will create a bill of materials. And when I create this bill of materials, what this is doing is this is going to strip out all of my like material from all of my assemblies. All right, and it's going to add those like items together and aggregate those like items onto a single line item. So you can see here I have the quantity of my items, the name, manufacturer, supplier, a part number. I can zero out my standard costs, which are being pulled from my internal database. I don't want to give my supplier a target to shoot at, so I will zero out these. I can copy and paste this or save this as an attachment and email this off to my supplier. Now, depending on my relationship with them, they're either going to update this sheet for me, or they will send me back something in their format, and I will update these item costs manually. At that point, I will hit save. Then I will hit import bill of material pricing from Excel. When I click on here, the same window pops up. I will browse locally to wherever that spreadsheet is saved, hit upload. And when I upload that, what is going to happen is it's going to go back through this entire project and update all of my individual prices down to the fastener, all right, based on what I was quoted from my supplier. This will not affect my database. This will not affect any current projects that I'm currently working on. When I import those special prices, this is going to be for this project only. Now, once I get my estimate lined up, my appropriate prices, my margins, my notes, everything lined up, I will come down here and hit show bid. Once I do, it will have your company logo, your company information, your clients, a quote number, which I can adjust, and everyone moving forward will be a +1. And then I will come over here on the left-hand side, and this is where I'm going to structure my proposal as far as what information I want displayed to my client. If I just want a lump sum, I will toggle on lump sum, and it will only have my scope of work, inclusions, exclusions, notes, and obviously my lump sum. I can round the total. I can adjust my decimal places. I can show labor and materials, taxes. If you get into any government work, we're going to require you to break out your profit separately, so I can toggle that on and off as needed. I can also come over here. Let's say I need to get more specific with my estimate. I need to know the quantity and the prices of my items. I can toggle off lump sum. I can show quantity, price. I can include my adjustments, include group subtotals beneath those. I can include my item descriptions. All right. I can come over here and toggle on group only. I can group it by plans. Then I can also separate it by any CSI codes that I have. All right. Now, if I want to manipulate this format, right, maybe I want to move things around. Maybe I want to round this number up here to 51,000. Maybe I want to insert some of my own attachments. We have this proposal builder. If I toggle this on, I can manipulate this format in any way, shape, or form, insert my own attachments, change the font, the color, again, move items around. I also have the ability to save this to a template, so I do not have to reconfigure this every single time depending on who I'm quoting to. Once I have this formatted, I will then hit export bid, save it as a PDF, save it as a Word document, or I can email this directly to my client without ever having to leave Esticom. Now, the last thing I want to show you, and I'll touch on very, very lightly, is creating alternate estimates, okay? So if I'm asked to value engineer this, maybe the project is spec'd out for a certain manufacturer and I have another manufacturer I want to use and I want to give them the option to do so, all right? Creating alternate estimates, different versions, value engineering this estimate is very, very simple. I have this original estimate up here at the top left-hand corner. I can hit these three dots, copy. Now I have created a duplicated version of this estimate within my original project. I can hit these three dots right here, rename this accordingly, and then I can go through here and manipulate this estimate in any way, shape, or form. If it's just a different manufacturer and I want to keep my quantities, I can come over here to the right-hand side, hit these three dots, hit replace item, and just swap it out with a different item within my database without having to redo my estimate. I can also add additional items, remove items, and then what that does, it creates a modified version, different subtotals, and what I can do here is I can hit these three dots, include this in my primary estimate, I toggle that on, I go back to my original estimate, down here to show bid again. And then you will see here, I now have this toggle right here to include my additional alternates. If I toggle this on at the very bottom here will be all my additional alternates with the costs associated with them. And I also have the ability to include those alternates in my subtotal if need be. And this completes the estimating portion of the estimate.